Welcome to another edition of the TU Sports Extra podcast. We've sort of been on a little summer hiatus, but we're back and we'll be joining you weekly throughout the football season. And with that, we have a new host. This is John Tranchina. And John, you're new to the TU beat, but you're certainly not new to Tulsa or the Tulsa world. Why don't you just take kind of 30 seconds and sort of introduce yourself to TU fans?
Okay, hello, I am John Tranchina. I have been covering high school sports primarily for the Tulsa World over the last 8-9 years or so since I moved to Tulsa. I've done a whole bunch of other stuff like FC Tulsa, soccer, Oilers, various other things as they've come up. But high school football as well. So I've seen a lot of these players when they were in high school. So now I'm on the TU beat and ready to go.
Now, and you've also done some work for AP, primarily Oklahoma State football. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've been basically up until about last year, I was a freelancer doing stuff for the world, and I was also working for AP doing Oklahoma State stuff. Yes, so I've been a lot more involved in Oklahoma State stuff over the last few years, but ready to switch over to TU.
So, well, given that you have kind of a fresh perspective, you've been to some scrimmages, you've been to practices, you've been talking to players and coaches. So far, what's your August impression of this program? You know, they ended on a high note last year. They won their final four games, had a bowl victory. Kind of what have you seen so far?
Well, from what I've seen, I see a team that looks like they're going in the right direction. It's hard to say how good they're going to be without them going against anybody else. But from what I've seen, I see a team that looks like they are humming along. Coach Philip Montgomery seems to feel like things are going smoothly too, on the trajectory that he'd like them to be at. So I'll take that cue and feel like I think they're looking pretty good. What I've seen in practice has been pretty tight. Like quarterback throws to receivers, everybody looks pretty good. From this vantage point after a week and a half of practice, there's not a whole lot you can say, glean from that, but from what I've seen, it looks pretty good.
What do you expect out of Keylon Stokes this year?
So Keylon Stokes, yes, he's very excited to see what he can do coming back. This is a guy who basically led the team in receiving yards and receptions 2018, 2019, 2020. Last year, he got hurt after 2 games, basically. He played in 4, but pretty much only saw action in 2 and missed the rest of the season. So he looks really good in practice. He is not slowed down at all by his injury. So he's back 100%, and he's made some really nice plays, some nice catches during practice and in the scrimmage that they had on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do this season.
Well, and you got to figure that's going to be a major benefit to Davis Brin, returning starter, kind of coming off an uneven season, if you will, last year. Right. He's got Juan Carlos Santana on one end and Keylon Stokes on the other, along with the others. I would think Davis Brin is kind of having a good time right now.
Yeah, I'm sure he's very happy. Yeah, having those 2 guys together, Santana and Stokes, is going to be a big benefit. When one guy's covered, you can go to the other, and the other team can only has both of them to contend with at all times. So that's going to be a big benefit. Brin has looked good himself. He's made a lot of really good throws. There's been maybe 1 or 2 times out of 5 practices or whatever where I've seen him make a bad throw or whatever and get intercepted, and he gets really mad. I can see, you can see the passion. He's frustrated when that happens, and that guy is trying hard to correct that. And for the most part, it seems like he has. Like he's really looked good so far. So I think that bodes well, especially with those 2 guys back.
So kind of keeping with that theme, John, how do you see Isaiah Epps fitting into this transfer? Jinx High School star back a couple years ago. What do you expect out of him?
I think he's going to be a really good third option. He's looked really good too in practice and in the scrimmage. In fact, I think in the scrimmage he had a touchdown catch, but he looked really he looks really good too. I think they got a really good group of receivers. I mean, you can probably throw a couple other guys in that mix that have been making plays throughout the practices, and I can't come up with the names right now, but there's been some really good plays by the receivers, and I'm looking, and Epps I think will have a key role. It's a good story with a guy coming back home. He's got 1 year left. He's graduated already from Kentucky, and he's gonna play in front of his home friends and family and stuff. And I think that's a good motivation, and he's gonna do well.
Yeah, so always great to kind of catch up with our local high school stars. So it's when they stay in state and we can watch them and talk to them, and that's great. So good to have him back. So let's go to the defensive side for a second. Before we went live here, you mentioned Jon-Michael Terry, former OU transfer. What have you seen out of him so far?
Yeah, he looks good. He missed most of last season, or certainly the second half of last season with an injury. He is back and healthy and looking good, flying around out there. He's going to be an impressive guy. You team him up at linebacker with Justin Wright, and you got to, those are two really good players, and that's going to be a formidable group.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything else, John? What's, from what you've seen, anything else you want to throw out?
Well, the one thing I'm most curious to see how it works out is the offensive line. They lost a couple of starters. You got a whole bunch of new transfers coming in. So it's kind of like they were almost starting from scratch with the first practice, where they're just throwing these guys into the blender and seeing who's going to stick and what the top five are going to be. Looks like they're working through that process. I think there's a top five at this point that have emerged, which includes guys like Will Farniak, Dylan Wade, and a couple of the newer players, such as including one of them is Daryl Simpson, another transfer from OU. So a couple of those guys, it's interesting to see the chemistry build, and as they've, so halfway through camp or whatever, week and a half of practice, they're already looking pretty solid. So you think, that's a question mark, but looks like they're on path to be ready for that first game. Another area I'll point out actually is running back.
Please.
They have their two of their top three running backs from last year returning, with Watkins and Deneric Prince, and they have a new guy that I wrote about the other day, Jordan Ford, who has looked really good in practice. Mm-hmm. Yes, so I think they're going to have a pretty good rotation there. Coach Montgomery has always said that he doesn't like not that he doesn't like it, but he prefers having a running back by committee situation where he's not just relying on one guy all the time. And these guys look like a really good group. That's, they all have a lot of special characteristics that I think collectively are going to really help out.